really have your support function get more technical. The more non-engineering work we put in front of our engineering team means the longer it's going to take you to get those problems that are really thorns, like, resolved. Can we free up bandwidth from our engineering team so they have to worry about zero support issues? To me, the easiest way to be able to resolve any sort of issue is to be comfortable and understand how all the parts are working. The barrier to entry is lower than ever, I think, now, if somebody's wanting to get into this field.
Welcome to the Jam Speedrun podcast. Today, we are lucky enough to have Ricky Perez from Appcues. Ricky, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Matt. It's great to be here.
We're super excited to chat today about all things AI and support. But as we were talking about before, I'm also very intrigued with the breadth of roles that you've had around customer relationships, and eager to hear kind of how that feeds into the way you're building support at Appcues. We're going to go through a few questions and just looking for initial reactions to what you see on the screen.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Question 1. This is a scale of 1 to 5. AI has significantly improved our support team's ability to resolve tickets faster. Where would you put Appcues on this scale today?
I'd say a 3 for us, particularly, only because of the tech stack that we use. I don't want to besmirch any great tech companies out there, but we use a very big CRM, and to utilize a lot of the built-in AI agents that it has to help with like ticket discoverability, readability, that sort of deflection, to actually improve a human's perspective of being able to resolve the problem faster. The consumption model that this corporation uses is just to me, it's a little untenable to be able to like continue rolling out and like at any meaningful scale. However, there are so many other tangential, like, outside of just the queue, help with knowledge learning, help with like actually going in and proactively resolving tickets. We definitely have room to get better, but it really would involve us like finding a better home in a help desk in order to really progress any further past a 3.
Yeah, you kind of beat me to the question is, if we're a year from now and you've moved up in the scale, where do you think you would have focused to kind of improve how your team resolves tickets?
Yeah, just I think more proactively. I mean, we may have, in the support space, you may have worked before. You've been forwarded a message from an email thread, and that thread may have, I don't know, 1,000 replies in it. Figuring out like where to dive in sometimes is a kind of a daunting task, especially if somebody hasn't gone through there and like summarized things really nicely and where we need to act on. I think AI. Having a help desk that has that like future that kind of first pass look to be able to just summarize the basic of what a thread is asking for, to allow you as a human to be able to start acting much quicker is a big step in the right direction. So that would be probably first and foremost. The other aspect as well is like, do we have the ability to kind of proactively get in there and send some, I'll say human-like responses, but what I'm trying to say is thoughtful responses for an AI. So like incorporate more of a ticket deflection cadence. So that way I don't necessarily have to have my team looking at the top 20% of commonly, like, this is something you can find in our documentation, and we can spend a lot of our time focusing on the more important issues that are there and actually doing some of the technical investigation, the fun challenges to solve.
It sounds like just getting clarity quickly on like, how should we be handling this ticket with all the context in mind allows you to make those quicker decisions as to who does what. Are there things that your team is doing today to kind of become smarter on some of these tools and start to test things that might be available to you?
Yeah, like I mentioned, like our help desk itself, a bit dated. So a lot of what we do is outside of that, but become friends with Claude, become friends with ChatGPT, these things that you can use as a tool to help yourselves level up. I mean, it feels like you could get a degree. You may want to double check the information you're getting from time to time, but for some of these like chat, like agents that you have out there at your disposal, I mean, there's nothing that's stopping anybody on the support realm from learning how to code, from learning markup, from being able to become a CSS whiz. Like some of these things that in Appcues are very important skills to have on the front line. There's nothing stopping you from being able to do that in a way that's super palatable. I think more, the barrier to entry is lower than ever, I think, now, if somebody's wanting to get into this field.
Totally makes sense. And a conversation we're having constantly is pushing the bounds of what support can do in the customer experience, not only in working directly with the customer, but in some of the more technical areas that come adjacent to the job. So totally makes sense. Let's go to the second question. Where outside of deflections do you see the most opportunity for your team as you continue to grow?
I think deflections, replies, and triage are probably the trinity I'm looking for. Resolution's great if I can feel very comfortable with the resolution. Escalation is a little lower on my priority. The thought of me having an emergency problem and having to talk to a non-human really bothers me. I shared on LinkedIn a couple months ago. I was on a flight back from Boston. There was a big cyber outage with American Airlines. I landed from Boston after hours of being delayed into Dallas to a customer service queue that was literally spilling across the terminal. Just hundreds of people there, like super upset. So I called American's help desk and I started chatting with their AI agent and got in a weird AI agent loop that was just wholly unproductive to be able to get home and get back to my family that night. Finally, like within 5 minutes, a human answered the phone, was able to get me on a flight later that night. So when I think of an escalation, I'm thinking of a real human being that has a real problem that needs to be solved. And frankly, I don't like the idea of a machine solving that urgent problem. Now, if this is something that obviously could be very programmatic, like this is just this simple checkbox is missing from your work cycle, and that's something different. But when we're talking about an escalation, we're talking about somebody at the end of the day who's very frustrated, and from like a services provider kind of point of view, the best way that I can get you to calm down is to hear you. At the end of the day, and maybe that's me jumping on a Zoom call with you. Maybe that is me, writing you 15 emails or whatever case, meeting you where you want to be met and allowing you to say the things that you need to say so that way we can fix the problem that you're having. And really to have the dialogue to figure out like what's the actual problem that needs to be having. So sorry, that was a big long diatribe of like why I don't think escalations are important. AI being able to handle a lot of the I would say that some of the easier tasks that go on, especially in like a technical help desk like Appcues, our product is very technical. So the challenges that are coming in and the use cases that we support are basically limitless. It depends on what you have in your tech stack. It depends on what you're trying to do. Like what outcomes are you really wanting to drive? And that makes, again, certain cases. I always talk to my team, like every case coming in is like a jigsaw puzzle. And like there's certain things that you can do to really maneuver it in a way where you're solving a puzzle. And it's almost like gamifying what we do rather than painting support as this like Sisyphean task that's happening in the background. We're having fun. We're helping people solve problems. So the things that I could do to help like take away like the kind of monotonous work, the follow-ups to let a customer know that we're still investigating their issue, or the moving of a case from like a support to support engineering to engineering, like proper, like those sorts of things I'm really excited for.
What I really like about what you described is it's very easy to line these boxes up and say, here's our workflow, right? We can deflect things. We can, we can go all the way through to resolution. And those are neat kind of workflow boxes. But the more important kind of cycle to manage is like the actual like customer emotion and need for help. And so that when you look at it from that angle, now you're more focused on like, what is the like biggest emotional response or opportunity to improve how they feel about the experience. And that's making sure they're heard when you find out, hey, they do have a real issue to be solved.
Yeah.
And it's less about these neat boxes that we might put in, on a Venn diagram.
Yeah. To me, yes. However, for all of my product friends out there listening to this, maybe there's a lot of things that AI can do to get in front of the customer before they start feeling all the friction that I was describing. Better enablement, better onboarding, or whatever the case is, like having the right tools in place so that your customers are subject matter experts in whatever it is that you're doing, and maybe feel a bit more equipped to be able to handle these kind of non-blue sky use cases, which can turn into points of friction, which can turn into escalations, which can turn into all these other things. If you stop that before it becomes, stop the spark before it becomes a big fire to have to worry about putting out. I think AI can do a lot there. We just rolled out a kind of an insights agent in Appcues called Captain. You probably have seen it if you looked on any of our LinkedIn's. You can see the little dolphin. It is a dolphin, by the way. It used to be a manatee, but there's a lot of internal dialogue going on about that. And that like we're actually putting in some different like support workflows into that now. So it does a really good job at providing insights on how you're using our product. We want to take it a step further and eventually get to a point where Captain is saying, oh, hey, folks, by the way, this experience that you have launched isn't being seen and it's been live for X number of days. These are the settings that we feel like may be configured incorrectly. Would you like us to update this? So actually using AI to really become proactive in the forms of alerting and whatnot. But there's so much room to grow from where we are now to where we want to be, in the next, 2 years. That I think it's to me, it's exciting because again, if we can back to a point of deflection, if we can get in front of these issues before they're a problem, you may not even need to open up a case at all. And we just kind of natively handle the problem as you're working through our solution.
How do you see some of these tools and what we've been talking about changing the kind of collaboration with engineering, if at all? Is there anything that you see shifting between how support and engineering work together?
Yeah, as much as we can to improve the issue discoverability, like problem that exists out there. Taking a random email that says urgent, my flow's not working, and actually figuring out details from that. This is the flow that the user is talking about. Here are the settings. Here are the users that have potentially seen it or whatnot, right? If your AI can dabble in whatever is going on, the events in your back end, along with what the user is recording, on the front end, we can have a very good session replay kind of like just natively available, and being able to feed that to engineering is going to save a lot of time of, hey, here are the steps to reproduce this issue. So that way you don't have to worry about doing any time or spending any time doing that.
Gotcha. So it's truly about clarity in those handoffs so that engineers are spending their times on the right things, and support is helping get to that moment where, hey, this is in fact we need engineering support in order to move this forward.
Right. Yeah. Because sometimes people think, hey, this is a bug, and actually, no, it's not. You just misconfigured, or this is actually more of a feature request because what we're doing, what the program is designed to do, even though it may not be ideal. So now I know which team internally to interface with. Do I bring this up to our product team? Do I bring this up to our engineering team? Is this something that support engineering can create a workaround for? That sort of thing. What can we do to get the right response back? And I say the right response because sometimes the right response to the customer is, sorry, customer, this is in fact not what we do. And let's not try to belabor the point any further. And sometimes it's, oh no, this is definitely a bug and we'll get it fixed. And here's what the sort of timelines are. But the more non-engineering work we put in front of our engineering team means the longer it's going to take you to get those problems that are really thorns like resolved.
Totally makes sense. Let's press on to question 3 here. Whether it's the tool you're kind of playing with on the side or something that you've tried to instrument in any workflow, are there any tools that you or your team have played with that you've found particularly compelling so far?
Yeah, I think some of the agents have gotten really, really fun and interesting the last few years. Like I mentioned Claude before. I love an agent that can help me get to like code to production faster. Like I'm a pseudo dev at best, but it's cool to be able to roll out a mobile app just by like talking to a ChatGPT or Claude or something like that. I know a lot of our team loves to use Lovable to create like web mockups and things, and that's just been really cool to see. So anything I think that can again help me as an end user become more comfortable and familiar with the process, specifically like the engineering related processes, is something that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, on that one, I'm particularly interested to hear your thought on kind of where the role of support goes long term. As team members get more comfortable with these tools and how you can use them to interact with more technical products or even mock-ups or investigating issues, do you see all support becoming more technical in nature over time? Do you see support shifting in the breadth of the customer experience that you support, or something else? Is there a 3-year vision of where you think support will end up being?
Gosh, that's a great question. If I had to put my chips on the table, I would think that would make more sense to really have your support function get more technical. Can we free up bandwidth from our engineering team so they have to worry about zero support like issues? And maybe that's involved like actually fixing bugs that come to the table. Like maybe that's just having a deeper understanding of like what systems and backend and what the tech stack you're using in your applications. Like to me, the easiest way to be able to resolve any sort of issue is to be comfortable and understand how all the parts are working. So that way, if something breaks, this is where I look, right? With CX, obviously, like support's sibling team within the customer experience department is typically customer success. So if you can have your support teams hyper focus on the super technical things, you can have your customer success teams hyper focus on the relationship and the value and like why these customers should remain sticky, and let your support team take all the other burden off of them so they can like really hyper focus on having those conversations.
I've seen folks either say, the breadth argument of support can truly be a single contact for the entire customer experience, and really it's kind of a merging of customer facing teams. And then I've had others that are much more focused on like deeper domain and specialties, like you described, where you get into the most complex issues. So I really like that idea of how complementary these two teams might become.
Yeah, I really like thinking about partnership between any function in an organization, even cross organizationally as well. But I bring a certain skill set to the table, Matt. You bring a certain skill set to the table. How can we better work together in order to really elevate what we're trying to do? Whereas if I tried to say like my current support team, who are absolutely incredible, just on every spectrum of being a human being, the most talented team I've ever had the pleasure of working with. They're not super comfortable getting out and giving a big keynote, right? Like there's certain skills that like really like the types of minds that support really attracts, you may not have in spades, like you do the technical acumen or your desire to solve problems or whatever it is that you're bringing in, to the team as far as your background or skill set goes. So to me, it's like embrace partnering with the individuals who are the yin to your yang so you can elevate together.
What I really like about that is actually something you said at the beginning around like, I think you talked about these being jigsaw puzzles. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like if you attract people into support who like solving puzzles, the natural evolution of that is to give them more complicated puzzles to solve rather than to ask them to go put a microphone in their hand and get on stage. So in the spirit of the last question that we have then is, have you seen this impact at all the skills that you hire for now? And if not, maybe where would you see this changing in the next, 18 months?
I think I may be a 2 here. Maybe it's higher than that now that I'm thinking about it. So what I love about AI, and I've always been, do I feel like this is the right person for our organization, for our customer, and for our team? It doesn't matter what your background is at that point. I've hired people who are brand new to tech. I've hired people who are veterans. I've hired, everything in between. And it's generally always like, you need to pass the vibe check first. And like, once that's there, like how much of an investment are we going to need to make to get you technically to where you need to be? And sometimes, depending on what's going on in the organization or what's going on in the current economic climate, we may not have a big window there. So what I love about AI, again, we break that barrier to entry down. Here are all these tools now that you can use. I don't need you to know how to write Snowflake queries or create API exchanges or anything like that, because these tools can help get you there so much faster than before. So I think it even helps people who may not have the technical backgrounds, who really want to break into some of these more technical roles, have the ability to do so, assuming they have the passion and the drive and all those other things. Again, that vibe check that I talked about, as long as that's passing, the technical acumen can almost play a little bit further down, if you have the customer service skills that support requires, right? Like, because I think at the end of the day, we are humans trying to help other humans solve these problems. And that problem may be very different from what we do at Appcues versus the next support company, and what your customer bases are trying to do. Some of it's more urgent than not. And you need to have somebody behind that keyboard or behind the microphone being able to have a good conversation with somebody. So to me, that's more important. And I think AI can help fill those other gaps. So if you're somebody who's very empathetic and someone who loves solving those problems, I can teach you, along with with the AI, how to do all the tech things in the background.
You were kind of oscillating between 2 and 3 on this. Yeah. There's got to be some curiosity that you see that someone will adopt those tools and be able to succeed with them that maybe maybe that's the gap between 2 and 3, is the willingness to get in there and try new things and learn and adapt.
Yeah, my gut was like, absolutely, AI hasn't changed the way I hire. But that's not true. Like if I really like challenge myself on it, that's not true. Where I've always been able to make a gamble or a bet on a hire with somebody specifically from like a non-technical background into potentially technical roles, assuming they show the acumen or the desire. Like this just makes it much easier for me to make that bet in the person, you know, even if their background doesn't quite line up for what the role is.
Well, it gives me hope there's a lot more to do in the future for all of us, myself included, to become more competent with these tools as they evolve. So thank you, Ricky, for sharing your perspective. And yeah, we'd love to continue the conversation at some point.
Yeah, my pleasure, Matt. Anytime.